I've had a lot of teachers that have really impacted me throughout my life, and as a child of educators and educator myself, I have such respect for them and the role they play in kids' lives. So choosing one teacher was very, very difficult. So for all my teachers who might watch this, I apologize in advance. But if there's one teacher who really made a difference in my life, it was Miss Franklin. So Mrs. Franklin was my 4th and 5th grade teacher at Ruskin Elementary School in San Jose. And I just remember before being put into her class that she and my mom got along, and I knew that I was in trouble, right? Because this woman, my mom was a teacher herself and was super hard. So when she and Miss Franklin got along, I knew I was in trouble. I remember she was really tall, and I thought that she was super, super mean, like especially to me, right? I couldn't get out of line at all. I said something to a kid once, and she made me sit on the bench every recess for a week. But I remember that she was kind of competent and detailed and held extremely high expectations for everyone. She could do anything. She knew math. She knew how to write. She had a piano in the class, and she would play the piano. She would bring us kids up. She had us write a musical. And one by one, she would have us sing to the keys on the piano, right? And she's just kind of looking at you and playing the piano, and she taught us tone. And I remember, her telling us that you can do anything, right? You can do anything, and believing that. She taught me how to do math very quickly, and the skills that I use later in life. She taught me how to speak, forced me to speak, made me memorize Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. I was in her class the very first time we celebrated Dr. King as a holiday. And she said, I want you to speak to the entire school. So I had to memorize it and deliver this speech, right? And just like, who does that, right? At 10 years old, memorizing a Dr. King speech. And she let us write our own musicals. And so we learned how to write music, and we learned how to write lyrics and act it out. And just as I look back on it, it was this really forward-thinking, progressive classroom space where you had these working-class kids, extremely diverse, doing work that no one would have thought possible, and making us believe that it was the norm. And I remember, as kind of insensitive as she seemed, as a teacher, we had her for 2 years. It was a 4 or 5 class, and we all went through as a cohort. And when we were graduating, she cried and told us that she loved us. And I think about the impact that Ms. Franklin had later on in life, what I learned about teaching. I thought that I was the worst student in her class. I did not get a single B in middle school after leaving that 4th, 5th grade class. And I was on the train today thinking about Mrs. Franklin. So I went to a huge high school. By Northern California standards. It had maybe 2,000 students. And so there were about 500 per grade. And there were 6 or 7 elementary schools that fed into this high school. And each of those elementary schools had 2 or 3 grades per class. So maybe 20, 25 different 5th grade classes fed into my senior year class. Of the top 10 students in that senior class, 6 of them were in that class with Mrs. Franklin, including the valedictorian, the salutatorian, myself, and a few others. And of all of those 6 students in an extremely diverse high school, 4 of the students in the top 10 in the class were non-white, all of whom had Mrs. Franklin as a teacher. And so sometimes you don't know in that moment. If you'd ask me this question at the end of 5th grade, I would say, Mrs. Franklin hates me. And she's mean, and she, like, every time I get out of line, but she just had such a rigorous high standard, right? And it worked for us. And I was also thinking, if there was one thing that would set her off, it was us showing disrespect to one another. And what she was doing was trying to teach us how to live together in a democracy. This was a neighborhood that brought people together from all different walks of life, and I can't underscore how diverse it was in every single manifestation. But she demanded that we respect ourselves and respect each other. And she didn't want anybody telling us that there wasn't anything that we can't do. I certainly wish I had said these things to Mrs. Franklin in 1983 when I graduated elementary school, but I think she knows, and wherever she is, I would just say, Thank you, Mrs. Franklin, and I love you.